This is a story about a young black boy being falsely accused of touching a white woman's rear end, when in fact it was his suitcase that brushed up against her as he passed by. A moment of misunderstanding. Malik Johnson was excited. At 17, he was finally flying solo for the first time, heading to visit his grandmother in Atlanta for the summer. He had spent weeks preparing for this trip, carefully packing his vibrant blue suitcase with clothes, books, and a few snacks. As he navigated through the bustling terminal of Maplewood International Airport, he felt a mix of nerves and exhilaration. The airport was alive with travelers rushing to their gates, families reuniting, and children laughing. Malik loved the energy of it all. He pulled out his phone to check his flight status and noticed that he still had plenty of time before boarding. With a smile on his face, he decided to grab a quick bite to eat at a nearby cafe. After ordering a sandwich and a soda, Malik found a small table by the window. He watched people come and go, imagining their stories. A couple was arguing softly at the next table, while a little girl tugged at her mother's hand, eager to get to the gate. Malik took a deep breath, savoring the moment. This was freedom, his first taste of independence. After finishing his meal, Malik stood up to head toward his gate. He grabbed his suitcase and started walking through the crowded terminal. As he maneuvered through the throngs of people, he felt confident and proud. However, as he turned a corner, disaster struck. A woman in her 30s, dressed in business attire with her hair neatly tied back, was walking briskly in the opposite direction. Malik didn't see her until it was too late. His suitcase rolled behind him and accidentally bumped into her leg just as they passed each other. The woman stumbled slightly and turned around, her eyes wide with shock and anger. "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise of the airport. Malik froze in place, confusion washing over him. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." But before he could finish his apology, she interrupted him. "You touched me. You grabbed my rear end." Her voice rose in volume, drawing attention from nearby travelers. Malik's heart raced as he realized what she was implying. "No. It was my suitcase. I didn't touch you." Panic surged through him as he tried to explain himself. As more people began to gather around them, Malik's anxiety escalated. The woman continued to shout accusations at him while others looked on with curiosity and judgment. He could feel their eyes on him, some filled with sympathy, others with skepticism. Within moments, airport security arrived on the scene. Two officers approached Malik and the woman, their expression serious. "What's going on here?" one officer asked. The woman pointed at Malik angrily. "He touched me. I want him arrested." Malik felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. "No. Please listen. It was an accident. My suitcase bumped into her." He gestured toward his suitcase lying on the floor behind him. The officers exchanged glances but remained focused on the woman's claims. "We need to take your statements," one officer said firmly. Malik's mind raced as he tried to think of how to prove his innocence. He felt trapped in a nightmare scenario where no one believed him. As they were escorted to a small room near the security office, Malik's heart pounded in his chest. The officers separated them for questioning, and Malik sat nervously in a plastic chair while one officer took notes. "Can you tell me what happened?" the officer asked calmly. "I was just walking with my suitcase," Malik explained desperately. "I didn't see her until it was too late. It bumped into her leg. I swear I didn't touch her." The officer nodded but remained skeptical. "We need to review the security footage before making any decisions." Malik felt a flicker of hope at that statement but also dread about what might be captured on video. Would it show him innocently passing by or would it be misconstrued? Meanwhile, outside the room, the woman continued to insist that Malik had assaulted her. Her voice echoed down the hall as she spoke with another officer about how unsafe she felt. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, another officer entered the room where Malik sat. "We've reviewed the security footage," he said gravely. Malik held his breath as the officer continued. "It appears that your suitcase did indeed bump into her leg as you walked by." Relief washed over him like cool water on a hot day. "So, I'm not being charged?" Malik asked cautiously. "No," the officer replied firmly but kindly. "However, we advise you to be more aware of your surroundings in crowded places." Malik nodded vigorously, feeling grateful yet frustrated by how quickly things had escalated before any facts were established. As he left the small room and walked back toward the main terminal area with an officer escorting him, he saw the woman sitting on a bench with her head in her hands. She looked up as Malik approached and avoided eye contact. "Are you okay?" he asked tentatively. She glanced at him briefly before looking away again. I panicked," she admitted quietly. "I understand," Malik replied softly. "It was an accident." Once outside the airport's security area, Malik took a deep breath of fresh air and tried to steady himself after everything that had happened. His heart still raced from adrenaline and anxiety as he made his way toward his gate again. He couldn't shake off how quickly assumptions had been made about him based solely on race and circumstance, a reality that weighed heavily on his mind as he walked through crowds of travelers who seemed oblivious to what had just transpired. When he finally boarded his flight and settled into his seat by the window, he gazed out at the clouds drifting by beneath him, an emblematic representation of freedom but also uncertainty now looming over him like shadows cast by those moments earlier that day. As they ascended into the sky, Malik reflected on how quickly life could change. A simple accident turned into an accusation that could have altered everything for him forever if not for that security footage clearing things up so swiftly. Upon arriving in Atlanta later that day, Malik was greeted warmly by his grandmother at baggage claim. A comforting embrace after such an overwhelming experience made all too real by its suddenness earlier that morning. "Welcome home," she exclaimed cheerfully while helping him retrieve his suitcase from baggage claim without realizing its significance yet again until they reached her car parked outside near arrivals where sunlight glinted off its polished surface like hope shining through darkness after rainstorms pass overhead unexpectedly sometimes when least expected to. As they drove through familiar streets lined with tall trees swaying gently under warm southern breezes blowing past open windows letting the fresh air fill their lungs together again, he shared snippets about what happened earlier today during travel while trying not to dwell too much upon negativity surrounding incidents beyond his control. All he wanted to do was get to his grandmother's house and rest.